Nicole Schulz, who's here with her sister Haley, her awesome sister Haley. I'm sitting right next to her. Nicole, come on up here. And I know it would take nothing for you guys to give your undivided attention. So, make sure both these microphones are on for Nicole.
This one would be the easiest. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here tonight. I am so honored to be in a room full of City of Hope supporters and people who believe in this place as much as I do. My journey with City of Hope began 13 years ago now, and every day I just love it more and more. So thank you guys for having me here tonight to just explain to you and share with you my story and what a special place it truly is, a magical place, like Joe said. It was Christmas break of my freshman year in high school when my life was changed forever. At the time, just became a varsity cheerleader. I was competing in beauty pageants, and my crush had just asked me to win her formal. So, 14-year-old me was thinking that things possibly just couldn't get any better. But over Christmas break, I began to just feel very tired and sick, very flu-like, and come Christmas morning when I didn't even want to get out of bed to open my Christmas presents, my family just felt that something was wrong. The day after Christmas, we went to my local pediatrician's office thinking that I had a very bad case of the flu, and it was also that time of year. And we go, and he pretty much agrees. He says, go home, rest, drink plenty of fluids, and that's what it is. But my mom was more concerned about the possibility of mono because I was exhausted, and I'm a very high energy person, and so me not wanting to do the things that I loved was more of a red flag. So the doctor was very dismissive, but he's like, you guys can stop by the lab on the way out and take a blood test. And so we just walked by the lab on the way out, took some blood, and I headed home. It was less than an hour later when the doctor had called and said, head directly to City of Hope. They will be waiting and ready for you as an emergency admittance. And I was somewhat familiar with what City of Hope was, as far as I knew that it wasn't just a hospital you go to when some small accident happens or a minor illness. I knew that something was very wrong, and I was terrified. We got to City of Hope, and I was rushed in. I was immediately hooked up to the very first IV I had ever had and started immediately receiving a blood transfusion. My parents were taken off into a side room where they were meeting with doctors, and the next thing I know, I'm sitting with my parents and the doctors, and they tell me I have cancer. And I was 14, and so all I heard was my death sentence, and I just lost it. I cried and I cried and I just fell over, and I felt like my life was over. I was diagnosed with an aggressive form of leukemia called AML, and they told me that I would be starting chemotherapy the very next morning. And like most 14-year-old girls, I had no clue what I was in for. I immediately started thinking of the CIA game I was gonna miss, or my hair, and all the petty things that I just had no clue what I was really in for. And I was scared, and I went into this area of denial. I was admitted to City of Hope and in the Helford Hospital, and became a permanent resident on the pediatric floor, receiving chemotherapy and blood and platelet transfusions every day. And I was receiving treatment for about 4 months, and I finally started feeling good, and I felt like, hey, I got a handle on this. When one day the doctors said we had to have a meeting, and they come in and they told me that the reason I had been feeling so well was actually not because I was getting better. It was because my body was becoming immune to the treatment, and the chemo was not working. And that meant that I would actually need a bone marrow transplant. And after being on the pediatric floor for about 4 months, I had seen so many other patients who received transplants and what these kids were going through, and it terrified me. We would have, on weekdays, we would go to group and play games together and do things, and I would always remember telling Tony, the child life specialist, like, what I got's bad, but thank God that's not me. Thank God that's not me, because what these kids were going through just terrified me. And learning that I needed a bone marrow transplant I didn't want to do it. I initially said, no, that's too much, it's too scary. But at the time, my little brother Jason, he was just 1 year old. And more so the thought of him growing up and not remembering me scared me and made me more upset than the thought of dying. It scared me more than death. So that was when I decided that no matter what, I was going to fight, and I was going to give it all I have. I was so lucky to be at City of Hope, because the day that I was diagnosed, my doctors saw how aggressive my cancer was, and they started looking for a match for me that day. So the day that I found out that I needed a bone marrow transplant was also the day I found out I had a match. And that proactiveness was monumental in my treatment, in my survival, because I didn't have to go through months of needless chemotherapy and sickness and being weak. I was able to get it right then, and it was a huge part in saving my life. To prepare for my bone marrow transplant, I had to go through full body radiation, and this was 2005. It was before targeted radiation was used, and full body radiation was one of the hardest parts. I did not even see how I could survive that treatment, let alone make it to my transplant, because it just cooked your body, and I wanted to give up. After my full body radiation, I did make it through, and I received my bone marrow transplant, and I had an unrelated donor that I was so lucky to have a perfect match for, and I started going through the recovery period at City of Hope. And things were not going very well. I had developed a condition called graft versus host disease, and I had gotten so sick that I weighed less than 80 pounds. I could no longer eat or even stand up and support my own body weight. And that was when I started to feel defeated. I was sick and tired, and I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. And I wanted to give up. But what kept me going was, of course, my friends, my family. I had an amazing support system, but it was my family at City of Hope. And I say that they're my family, and I mean that, because when you are diagnosed with cancer, your life stops. Your world, everything in it stops, but the rest of the world keeps going. And after a few months, you no longer have friends and visitors and people coming in to lift your spirits every day. And the people that I had there for me were my doctors, my nurses, my child life specialists and social workers, the cleaning crew who come in at 3 in the morning and keep you company. At this point, I was hospitalized for 11 months, and you lose track of day and night. And so when you're up at 3 in the morning scared and you think you have no one, at City of Hope you do. You have family, and I would be in the nurses' station hanging out with them. They would come to my room, And those relationships were so important because in times that I didn't believe in myself and I didn't want to do it and didn't think I could do it, they believed in me and they kept encouraging me. They would come in my room and open the blinds and be like, you can do this, let the sun in, come on, you can do this. They reminded me that this is a fight worth fighting. And if it hadn't been for them, I would have given up, but they did not let me, and that is so special to me, those relationships. After the 11 months of being hospitalized, I finally started getting better. I had turned the corner. I was able to eat normal food again and slowly started getting stronger, and I was able to go home and eventually go back to school, and I had my second chance at life, and things were going great. When about 2.5 years later, one weekend I felt a fever. And it was like a light bulb moment where I just knew it wasn't just any fever. And I actually turned to my friend and was like, we need to go to City of Hope now. You need to rush there because anytime I'm scared, where I want to be is City of Hope because that's where someone has my back. So we rushed there and I had labs drawn and my blood results came back. And actually they came back looking normal. But City of Hope knows better safe than sorry. And I had a bone marrow biopsy the next morning. But when the results came back, my cancer was back. And I just remember getting so mad that I just grabbed my hair and started pulling and like yelling in frustration because I thought I had fought this battle and that I had won, and now I was learning that I had to do it all over again. But this time I knew what I was in for and I felt ready. I began my treatment again at City of Hope, and I was so lucky that they found me a second match for a second bone marrow transplant. And that was 9 years ago now, and it's been 12 years since my first transplant. And being at City of Hope all these years, I've continuously been in treatment for different continuous long-lasting side effects, but I have the most unique seat as a patient because being there since 2005 and being a child diagnosed with an adult form of cancer, so many of my treatments that were trials that were provided by people like you, and seeing those treatments that were trials go from a let's try this, fingers crossed, to becoming a protocol for patients around the world, but also seeing those treatments touch my family members and other friends that in the years since have come down with the sickness and different issues. It is the most amazing to see what City of Hope is doing and the miracles that they are doing there. Joe mentioned that my dream was to work at City of Hope, and I love that place so much I just never wanted to leave. Because there I don't have when I'm at City of Hope, when I'm there, I don't have fear or anxiety because I know no matter what, I'm in the best hands. And no matter how bad my situation can get, I'm in the best hands and someone has my back. And it is such a special, special place. And I know some of you guys had the opportunity to come out to the tour of City of Hope a couple months ago. And I encourage all of you, go see the campus. There's nothing like it. It is a beautiful place. You would never guess that this is a place of cancer because you walk into it, you walk down the opening and you can feel the energy and the protection. It's kind of like the new Incredibles movie came out. You know, the bubble that Violet puts around, that ultraviolet protection thing she puts around her family? That bubble's around City of Hope. And you can't feel that energy anywhere else. And there's a place that's in the Rose Garden, and I think that this just 100% sums up City of Hope. It's the Golter Gate, and it reads, "There's no profit in curing the body if in the process we destroy the soul." And that's what City of Hope does. because we are trying so hard and making just strides in our cure for cancer and diabetes and AIDS. But until we have those cures, we have to take care of each other and take care of each other's souls. And you guys are a part of that. You guys are the people. I met a man who said he's been here doing these events since 2005. And I've been sick and a patient since 2005. And so these events, you guys in this room likely paid for some of the trials that are the reason I'm standing here today. And so being able to come here and just say thank you to you guys and let you guys know that the patients at City of Hope and at our locations across the country or around the world, patients who are receiving treatments that were discovered at City of Hope, we appreciate it so much. Our families do. I'm 27 today. I work at City of Hope. I never planned this far in life, and I now have the opportunity to look forward and plan a future. I am an aunt, and I have a 3-year-old nephew, and I would not be able to experience these things without people like you. So I just want to say thank you, because you guys are really making a difference in the world. So thank you so much.